we have this influx of very cheap and creative tech, right? So back in the day, you had a mixer, maybe a Cuisinart. You had knives, you had pans. That was it. Like, you didn't have a slicer for eggs, a specific blender that you only use to make ice cream. Like, I'm just trying to think of, like, these devices, something that you only use for pancakes and then something else that you use for waffles, like an appliance for one use. That's unheard of back in the day, right? So, I think that's really what the clutter is that we're being sold these conveniences that we think we need. But the reality is, do you really need that ice cream cone maker? The one that only makes the waffle cones that you wrap yourself? Like, how often are you eating ice cream that you need to make your own waffle cone maker?
Right. Right. There's an abundance of tools that you could choose. And so do you see that happening where we're buying all these tools and then never using them? Or what do you think?
The way to know what not to buy is to go to during the summer or when the warmer months are here, go to the yard sales. And the thing that you see consistently that everyone's selling, whether it's a waffle maker or that, whatever it is, back in the day, I'm just thinking of like exercise equipment. I saw like Thigh Masters from Suzanne Summer. They were everywhere. It was like, yeah, everyone bought them, but no one used them, and I would really think about just my kind of criteria is if it's something I'm only going to use once, I do not buy it.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know what I mean? And if it's something I'm only doing once a month, that's even also potentially a no buy. Because most likely, if it's something I'm doing once a month, it's probably something I don't actually need. Like, I don't like, meaning I don't need it in my body. Like, because it's probably a treat and it's probably not an essential. It's not something to fuel my body. It's just something to appease my body. And in that situation, I'd rather just go out and let someone else, make it for me.
If you were to walk in, 10, go into 10 kitchens, right? But unannounced, what do you think it reveals about them?
Oh, everything, just like a car.
Oh, say
The
more.
spaces the spaces that we use the most often, how those are kept reveal everything about the person. I am known for going into people's kitchens and opening their pantries, and people like, no one does that, right? No one, like, is meeting someone the first time and then says, starts opening their pantries and just, like, is looking. I do that because I just find it either fascinating or revealing, and I will say, like, I've been to really close friends' houses, and for the most part, their kitchens are okay. There's a lot of junk everywhere, in my opinion, but where it really shows up is when you open their food pantry and they've just got food pouring out of it. You can tell that no one's actually tracking what's in there. They've got 6 of the same thing because no one's aware. There's no order to it. So
Uh,
so I tend to believe that if your kitchen is chaotic, then probably your health is as well.
yeah. I would like to know why you specifically believe that, though. Why is our food system broken? How is it broken?
It's broken on a few levels. So there's the obvious one of, like, our soil systems aren't what they were, and this is not something I'm just getting from books or just inventing. It's like anyone can do the research. The U.S. government has been tracking our soil degradation and the nutrition in the food that comes from those soils since, I think, the late 50s. So they have all this data of just decades of data, and it shows, the graph shows, like, 50s, and then it just to 26, it's just going down. And that's soil health. That's also seeds. I mean, it's transportation when you pull a tomato when it's green and then you have to spray it with a substance to turn it red. That's because they're freighting all those tomatoes so far, and if they have them already ripened, they'll be smushy and they'll lose their, they won't make any money off of that. So it's ultimately all about money. It's all about yields. How much can I get from the smallest plot of land, of course. So that's the obvious stuff. The other stuff is that we're continuing to lead these very busy lives. We're continuing to outsource our health. So we are the only species in the world that
Mm.
looks to someone else to tell us what to eat.
Wow.
Right? You know, and that's even more humbling when you think about how many species there are. There's 9,000,000 species. So, the fact that we're not different than all those other species, simply we've created a world that isn't conducive towards looking inward or toward listening inward, and we've confused ourselves, and we're just not doing our humanity much service in this modern lifestyle. So, one thing is that people are outsourcing, they're looking for prepackaged foods. You can never rely on anyone else making you healthy except for yourself. You have to have your own agency because a restaurant, a grocery store, they're all focused on their bottom line. They're all trying to survive and make a profit. That's not wrong. They're businesses. That's what they should be doing. But it's wrong for us to assume that because it's in the grocery store, that means it's healthy because the health restaurant that's called Whole Earth has that very earthy name, and it makes you think it's healthy. That doesn't mean it is healthy, right? The only way to truly be healthy is to master your own kitchen, to choose the fats, the oils that you're going to use, to choose the proteins that you're going to use, make sure that they fit your standards and really your desired outcome. I would say that that's the biggest one. And then, of course, on another angle is, we're raising kids that don't even realize that bacon is from a pig. Pork comes from a pig, or that chickens aren't skinless and boneless. You know what I mean? Like we've moved so far away. Like when my mother was a child in the 1950s in Brooklyn, there were live poultry markets. They would go to the market. They would go to the markets. They would see living chickens, and they
Mhm.
would point one out and say, "I like that one." Then the store would take it, and then they would leave, and they would come back an hour later, and they would have a, plucked, dressed chicken ready for them to take home and cook. It was that fresh. So there was an absolute connection between this is a living animal or being to now it's my food. And we've
Yeah.
completely lost it. Everything is separated by plastic now.
What do you think are the most common thoughts that get in the way of humanity making friends with the kitchen or having agency? What do you think is happening?
Yeah, I think the first one that you're touching on is that we think that just because we have to eat, that we also have to love to cook. So we're not only taught that to a degree, but we're also we put that pressure on ourselves that I have to love to do this. But and then that really what that does is that puts a lot of shame on people that just aren't aligned. Like not everyone wants to be a cook, but yet because I have to eat and because I'm hearing, Chef James say master my kitchen, that means I just got to do it, but I don't love it. So the reality is yeah, it is a situation here because I'm saying like, yeah, you don't have to love to cook, but you do have to cook because that's the only way you're going to get healthy. So, what does that mean we can do? Well, let's not focus so much on loving cooking. Let's focus on loving the environment that we're cooking in. So
Oh,
creating an environment that we feel loved or that we love. So that might mean making sure it's really light, lots of sunlight comes into it. It might mean brighter colors in the kitchen, maybe some yellows, something like that that kind of lift your spirit more, whatever your favorite color is. That might mean making sure that there's fresh flowers there all the time because that's something that you do love. That might mean listening to your favorite podcast, listening to music that kind of lightens your soul. That's up to you, but that's what you do have agency over is you don't have to love to cook, but you can create an environment where you feel loved and loving. It's really can make the difference. And then here's a huge tip that I find moves the needle the most, and most people underuse it, which is just meal plan. Just meal plan. Meal planning, limits what you buy at a grocery store because you're only buying that what you're gonna use in the meal. You can meal plan and look at your schedule, so then that way you're building the meal plan based off of your schedule versus just building a meal plan because you have to eat. So, like, if you work meetings all the way up to 5, and they start at 9 and you're not gonna have time to make your own food, that might be a slow cooker day because you could throw everything in there in the morning, and then it's ready for you when you get off of work. So there's different tricks you can do. You can also batch cook, of course, like on a Sunday and get yourself ready with some basics. But most of all, though, you wanna remove the shaming, you wanna remove that kind of feeling like you have to. just shift not only your mindset, but shift the environment so that's conducive towards what you want to.
Ooh, I like what you just said. Like shift from what you have to do. Because when we think we have to do something, of course, we push against that. We don't want to do that. And you said shift it to what you want to do or what you get to do. This is a privilege, right? We get the privilege of taking care of ourselves in this way, removing the clutter that doesn't serve us, the clutter, the foods that have, what did you say, natural flavors, right? I think of that as clutter, right? Because some of us are sensitive to those natural flavors that aren't so natural. So this gets to be a get to do, not a have to do. I really like that you said that.
Because I'm a father and because I want to ensure that my kids are thriving, and the way to get our kids to thrive is to get those really nutrient dense foods that easily absorb into their diet. But also I needed it too because, I wanna be alive a long time to experience them and be present with them, right? So it's twofold, like, I'm a chef, so I focus on flavor, and I'm a father, and I focused on health.
James, for you, what is the lighter path for you?
You know, the thing that I've been working on, I had a really strong hit at the end of 25 that a lot of us live in either anger or fear. That's kind of where our emotional, intelligence kinda starts and ends, and we kinda stay in that certain very physical plane or emotional plane, and what I left 25 really having awareness around is that whenever judgment comes up in me or whenever I'm feeling that the outside, society is narrating my mindset, it is affecting my mindset or my perspective and pulling me away from what I believe is true, that instead of, like, buying into it and succumbing my own perspective or my own mindset, that I'm gonna just take a breath and notice where in my body the energy, that fear or that anger is, because that's usually what it is, and just then release it. So, like, that basically in 26, it's about release. It's not about holding on to anyone else's ideas of what is right for me, but really going inward and asking the questions inside to basically find out what is right for me.